So, hello and welcome back yet again to another evening with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, who is not going to the place where all of the investigation should be being done. He's sending Watson instead, which is an interesting thing that he's doing. I don't know how that's all going to work out. I mean, maybe Watson is always been the actual detective in this series. I doubt it, but I like to at least think that. Anyway, I hope you guys are all doing good today. I am reading super late tonight because I spent a lot of the day cooking and then the rest of the day just sort of vegetating. It's a thing I do every now and then. And so I did not actually get up here and sit down to read a chapter until I won't actually tell you what time it is, but it's okay because this chapter will be up on time, so that's always a good thing. Anyway, we are going to be reading chapter 7 of The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, where Watson is now in Baskerville Manor and a little creeped out, it sounded like. I enjoyed the description of Baskerville Manor and I enjoyed the description of the moor, so I do have to give Sir Arthur Conan Doyle massive credit for setting the scene so nicely. Anyway, we're going to jump into chapter 7, which is titled The Stapletons of Merripit House. The fresh beauty of the following morning did something to efface from our minds the grim and gray impression which had been left upon both of us by our first experience of Baskerville Hall. As Sir Henry and I sat at breakfast, the sunlight flooded in through the high mullioned windows, throwing watery patches of color from the coats of arms which covered them. The dark paneling glowed like bronze in the golden rays, and it was hard to realize that this was indeed the chamber which had struck such a gloom into our souls the evening before. "I guess it's ourselves and not the house we have to blame," said Sir Henry. "We were tired with our journey and chilled by our drive, so we took a grey view of the place. Now we're fresh and well, and it's all cheerful once more." And yet it was not entirely a question of imagination, I answered. "Did you, for example, happen to hear someone, a woman, I think, sobbing in the night?" "That's curious, for I did, when I was half asleep, fancy that I heard something of the sort. I waited quite a time, but there was no more of it, so I concluded it was all just a dream." I heard it distinctly, and I'm sure that it really was the sobbing of a woman. "We must ask about this right away." He rang the bell, and he asked Barrymore whether he could account for our experience. It seemed to me that the pallid features of the butler turned a shade paler still as he listened to his master's question. "There are only 2 women in the house, Sir Henry," he answered. "One is the scullery maid, who sleeps in the other wing, and the other is my wife, and I can answer for it that the sound could not have come from her." And yet he lied as he said it. For it chanced that after breakfast I met Mrs. Barrymore in the long corridor with the sun full upon her face. She was a large, impassive, heavy-featured woman with a stern, set expression of mouth, but her telltale eyes were red and glanced at me from between swollen lids. It was she who wept in the night, and if she did so, her husband must know of it. Yet he had taken the obvious risk of discovery in declaring that this was not so. Why had he done this? And why did she weep so bitterly? Already this round, pale-faced, handsome, black-bearded man. All around him there was gathering an atmosphere of mystery and gloom. It was he who had been the first to discover the body of Sir Charles, and we had only his word for all the circumstances which led up to the old man's death. Was it possible that it was Barrymore, after all, who we had seen in the cab out on Regent Street? The beard might have been the same. The cabman had described a somewhat shorter man, but such an impression could have easily been erroneous. How could I settle this point? Obviously, the first thing to do was to see the Grimpen postmaster and find whether the test telegram had really been put into Berryman's own hand. Be the answer what it might, I should at least have something to report to Sherlock Holmes. Sir Henry had numerous papers to examine after breakfast, so the time was propitious for my excursion. It was a pleasant walk of 4 miles along the edge of the moor, leading me at last to a small gray hamlet, in which 2 larger buildings, which proved to be the inn and the house of Dr. Mortimer, stood high above the rest. The postmaster, who was also the village's grocer, had a clear recollection of the telegram. "Certainly, sir," he said. "I had the telegram delivered to Mr. Barrymore exactly as directed." "Who delivered it?" I asked. "My boy here, James. You delivered that telegram to Mr. Barrymore at the hall last week, did you not?" "Yeah, Dad, I delivered it." "Into his own hands?" I asked. "Well, he was up in the loft at the time, so that I could not put it into his own hands, but I gave it to Mrs. Barrymore's hands, and she promised to deliver it at once." "Did you see Mr. Barrymore?" "No, sir, but I tell you he was in the loft." "If you didn't see him, how do you know that he was in the loft?" "Well, surely his own wife ought to know where he is," said the postmaster angrily. "Didn't he get the telegram? If there's any mistake, it is for Mr. Barrymore himself to complain." It seemed hopeless to pursue the inquiry any further, but it was clear that in spite of Holmes's ruse, we had no real proof that Barrymore had not been in London at the time. Suppose it were so. Suppose that the same man had been the last who had seen Sir Charles alive, and also the first to dog the new heir when he returned to England. What then? Was he the agent of others, or did he have some sinister doings of his own? What interest could he have in persecuting the Baskerville family? I thought about the strange warning clipped out of the leading article of the Times. Was that his work? Or was it possibly the doing of someone who was bent upon counteracting his schemes? The only conceivable motive was that which had been suggested by Sir Henry, that if the family could be scared away, a comfortable and permanent home would be secured for the Barrymores, but surely such an explanation as that would be inadequate to account for the deep and subtle scheming which seemed to be weaving a net around the young baron. Holmes himself had said that no more complex case had come to him in all of the long series of his sensational investigations. I prayed as I walked back along the gray, lonely road that my friend might soon be freed from his preoccupation and be able to come down to take this heavy burden of responsibility from my shoulders. Suddenly my thoughts were interrupted by the sound of running feet behind me, and by a voice which called me by name. I turned, expecting to see Dr. Mortimer, but to my surprise it was a stranger pursuing me. He was a small, slim, clean-shaven, prim-faced man, flaxen-haired and lean-jawed, between 30 and 40 years of age, dressed in a gray suit and wearing a straw hat. A tin box for botanical specimens hung over his shoulder, and he was carrying a green butterfly net in one hand. "You will, I'm sure, excuse my presumption, Dr. Watson," he said as he came panting up to where I stood. "Here on the moor we are homely folk and do not wait for a formal introduction. You may have possibly heard my name from our mutual friend, Dr. Mortimer. I am Stapleton of the Merripit House." "Your net and box would have told me that much," I said, for I knew that Mr. Stapleton was a naturalist. "But how do you know me?" "I've been calling on Mortimer, and he pointed you out to me from the window of his surgery as you passed. As our road lay the same way, I thought I would overtake you and introduce myself. I trust that Sir Henry is none the worse for his journey." "He's very well, thank you." "We were all rather afraid, after that sad death of Sir Charles, that the new baron might refuse to live there. It is asking much of a wealthy man to come down and bury himself in a place like this, but I need not tell you it means a great deal to the countryside. Sir Henry has, I suppose, no superstitious fears about this?" "I don't think that's likely." "Of course you know the legend of the fiend dog that haunts the family?" "I've heard it." "It is extraordinary how credulous the peasants are around here. A number of them are ready to swear that they have seen such a creature upon the moor." He said this with a smile, but I seemed to read in his eyes that he took the matter seriously. "The story took a great hold upon the imagination of Sir Charles, and I have no doubt it led to his tragic end." "And how?" "His nerves were so worked up that the appearance of any dog might have had a fatal effect upon his diseased heart. I fancy he really did see something of that kind upon that last night in the yew alley. I feared some disaster might occur, for I was fond of the old man, and I knew he had a weak heart." "How did you know that?" "Why, his friend Mortimer told me." "So you think that some dog pursued Sir Charles and he died of fright? Do you have a better explanation?" "I haven't come to any conclusion." "And has Sherlock Holmes—" The words took away my breath for an instant, but a glance at the placid face and the steadfast eyes of my companion showed that no surprise had been intended. "It is useless for us to pretend that we do not know you, Dr. Watson," he said. "The records of your detective have reached us here, and you could not celebrate him without being known yourself. When Mortimer told me your name, he could not deny your identity. If you are here, then it follows that Mr. Sherlock Holmes is interesting himself in this matter, and I am naturally curious to know what view he might take." "I'm afraid I can't answer that question." "May I ask, is he going to honor us with a visit?" "He cannot leave town right now. He has other cases engaging his attention." "Oh, what a pity! He might throw some light on that which is so dark to us. But as to your own researches, if there is any possible way in which I could be of service to you, I trust you will command me. If I had any indication of the nature of your suspicions, or how you propose to investigate the case, I might perhaps even now give you aid or advice." "I assure you, I am simply here upon a visit to my friend Sir Henry. I have no need of any help." "Oh, excellent," said Stapleton. "You're perfectly right to be wary and discreet. I am justly reproved for what I feel was an unjustifiable intrusion, and I promise you I will not mention the matter again." We had come to a point where a narrow, grassy path struck off from the road and wound away across the moor. A steep, boulder-sprinkled hill lay upon the right, which had in bygone days been cut into a granite quarry. The face, which was turned towards us, formed a dark cliff with ferns and brambles growing in its niches. From over the distant rise there floated a gray plume of smoke. "A moderate walk along this moor path brings us to Merripit House," he said. "Perhaps you will spare an hour, that I may have the pleasure of introducing you to my sister." My first thought was that I should be by Sir Henry's side, but then I remembered the pile of papers and bills with which his study table had been littered. It was certain that I couldn't help with those. And Holmes had expressly said that I should study the neighbors upon the moor. I accepted the invitation, and we turned together down the path. "It's a wonderful place, the moor," he said, looking around over the undulating downs, the long green rollers with crests of jagged granite foaming up into fantastic surges. "You never tire of the moor. You cannot think the wonderful secrets that it contains. It's so vast and barren and so mysterious." "You know it well, then?" "I've only been here 2 years. The residents call me a newcomer. We came shortly after Sir Charles settled, but my tastes led me to explore every part of the country all around, and I should think that there are few men that know it better than I do." "It's hard to know?" "Very hard. You see, for example, this great plain to the north here, with the queer hills breaking out of it. Do you see anything remarkable about that?" "It'd be a rare place for a gallop." "Naturally, you would think so. And the thought has cost several their lives before now. You notice those bright green spots scattered all over it?" "They seem more fertile than the rest." Stapleton just laughed. "That is the great Grimpen Mire," he said. "A false step out there means death to man or beast. Only yesterday I saw one of the moor ponies wander out into it, and he never came out. I saw his head for quite a long time craning out of the bog hole, but it sucked him down at last. Even in the dry season, it's a danger to cross it, but after the autumn rains, it's an awful place. And yet I can find my way to the very heart of it and return alive. By George! There's another of those miserable ponies." Something brown was rolling and tossing among the green sedges. Then a long, agonized, writhing neck shot upward, and a dreadful cry echoed over the moor. It chilled me with horror, but my companion's nerves seemed to be stronger than mine. "It's gone," he said. "The mire has him. 2 in 2 days, and many more perhaps, for they get in the way of going in there in the dry weather and never know the difference until the mire has them in its clutches. It's a bad place, Grimpen Mire." "And yet you can penetrate it." "Oh, yes. There are 1 or 2 paths which a very active man can take, and I've found them." "Why would you want to go into such a horrible place?" "Well, you see the hills beyond. They're really islands cut off on all sides by the impassable mire, which has crawled around them in the course of the years. That is where the rare plants and butterflies are, if you have the wits to reach them." "I'll have to try my luck someday." He just stared at me with a surprised face. "Oh, for God's sake, put the idea out of your mind. Your blood would be on my head. I assure you that there would not be the least chance of your coming back alive. It's only by remembering certain complex landmarks I'm able to do it." "Hello," I said. "What is that?" A long, low moan, Indescribably sad swept over the moor. It filled the air, and yet it was impossible to say where it came from. From a dull murmur, it swelled into a deep roar and then sank back into a melancholy, throbbing murmur yet again. Stapleton looked at me with a curious expression. "Queer place, the moor," he said. But what was it? "Well, the peasants say it's the hound of the Baskervilles calling for its prey. I've heard it once or twice before, but never so loud." I looked around with fear in my heart, and the huge swelling plains all around that were mottled with the green patches of rushes. I looked at them, but nothing stirred over the vast expanse, save a pair of ravens which croaked loudly from a tor behind us. "You're an educated man," I said. "You don't believe that nonsense, do you? What do you think is the cause of the strange sound?" "Well, bogs just make queer noises at times. It's the mud settling or the water rising or something like that." No, that was a living voice. "Well, perhaps it was. Did you ever hear a bittern boom?" "No, I never have." "It's a very rare bird, practically extinct, at least in England now, but all things are possible upon the moor. Yet I should not be surprised to learn that what we heard was the very last cry of the last of the bitterns." "It's the weirdest thing I've heard in my entire life," I said. "Yes, it is a rather uncanny place altogether. Look at the hillside yonder. What do you make of those?" The whole slope was covered with gray circular rings of stone, at least a score. "What are they? Sheep pens?" "No, they are the homes of our worthy ancestors. Prehistoric man lived thickly upon the moor, and as no one in particular has lived there since, we find all of his little arrangements the way he left them. Those are his wigwams with the roofs off. You can even see the hearths and his bed if you have the curiosity to go inside." "But it was quite a town. When was it inhabited?" "Oh, Neolithic man. No dates at all." "And what did he do?" "He grazed his cattle on these slopes, and he learned to dig for tin when bronze swords began to supersede the stone axe. Look at the great trench in the opposite hill. That's his mark. Yes, you will find some singular points around the moor, Dr. Watson. Oh, excuse me, it is surely Cyclopides." A small fly, or maybe a moth, had fluttered across our path, and in an instant Stapleton was rushing with extraordinary energy and speed in pursuit. To my dismay, the creature flew straight for the great mire, and my acquaintance never paused for an instant, bounding from tuft to tuft behind it, his net waving in the air. His gray clothes and jerky, zigzag, irregular progress made him not unlike some huge moth himself. I was standing watching his pursuit with a mixture of admiration for his extraordinary activity and fear lest he should lose his footing in the treacherous mire, when I heard the sound of steps and turning found a woman near me on the path. She had come from the direction in which the plume of smoke indicated the position of Merripit House, but the dip of the moor had hid her until she was quite close. I did not doubt that this was the Miss Stapleton of whom I had been told, since ladies of any sort must be few upon the moor, and I remembered I had heard someone describe her as being a beauty. The woman who approached was certainly that, and of a most uncommon type. There could not have been a greater contrast between brother and sister, for Stapleton was neutral tinted, with light hair and gray eyes, and she was darker than any brunette I have ever seen in England, slim, elegant, and tall. She had a proud, finely cut face, so regular that it might have seemed impassive were it not for her sensitive mouth and beautiful, dark, eager eyes. With her perfect figure and elegant dress, she was indeed a strange apparition upon the lonely moorland path. Her eyes were on her brother. As I turned, and then she quickened her pace towards me. I had raised my hat and was about to make some explanatory remark when her own words turned all my thoughts to a new channel. "Go back," she said. "Go straight back to London instantly." I could only stare at her in stupid surprise. Her eyes blazed at me, and she tapped the ground impatiently with her foot. "Why should I go back?" I asked. "I cannot explain." She said this in a low, eager voice. "But for God's sake, do what I ask you. Go back and never set foot upon the moor again." "But I've only just gotten here." "Oh, man," she cried, "can you not tell when a warning is for your own good? Go back to London. Start tonight. Get away from this place at all costs. Shh! My brother is coming. Not a word of what I have said. Would you mind getting that orchid for me, among all the mare's tail over there? We're very rich in orchids upon the moor, though of course you're rather late to see the beauties of the place." Stapleton had abandoned his chase and come back to us, breathing hard and flushed with exertion. "Ah, hello, Beryl," he said, and it seemed to me that the tone of his greeting was not a cordial one. "Well, Jack, you're very hot." "Yes, I was chasing a cyclopides. He's very rare and seldom found in the late autumn. What a pity that I missed him." He said this unconcernedly, but his small, light eyes glanced incessantly from the girl to me. "You've introduced yourselves, I can see." "Yes, I was telling Sir Henry it was rather late for him to see the true beauties of the moor." "Why, who do you think this is?" "Well, I imagine it must be Sir Henry Baskerville." "No," I said, "just a humble commoner, but his friend. My name is Dr. Watson." A flash of irritation passed over her face. "We've been talking at cross purposes," she said. "Why, you had not very much time for talk," her brother remarked. "I talked as if Dr. Watson were a resident instead of being merely a visitor," she said. "It cannot much matter to him whether it's early or late for the orchids, but you will come, will you not, and see the Merripit House?" A short walk brought us there. A bleak moorland house, once the farm of some grazier in the old prosperous days, but now put into repair and turned into a modern dwelling. An orchard surrounded it, but the trees, as is usual upon the moor, were stunted and nipped, and the effect of the whole place was mean and melancholy. We were admitted by a strange, wizened, rusty-coated old manservant who seemed in keeping with the house. Inside, though, were large rooms furnished with an elegance in which I seemed to recognize the taste of the lady. As I looked from their windows to the granite-flecked moor rolling unbroken to the horizon, I could not but marvel at what could have brought this highly educated man and this beautiful woman to live in this place. "Queer spot to choose, isn't it?" he said, as if answering my thought. "And yet we manage to make ourselves fairly happy, don't we, Beryl?" "Quite happy," she said, but there was no ring of conviction to her words. "I had a school," said Stapleton. "It was in the North Country. The work, to a man of my temperament, was mechanical and uninteresting, but the privilege of living with youth and helping mold those young minds and of impressing them with one's own character and ideals was dear to me. However, the fates were against us. A serious epidemic broke out in the school, and 3 of the boys died. It never recovered from the blow, and much of my capital was irretrievably swallowed up. And yet, if it were not for the loss of the charming companionship of the boys, I could rejoice over my misfortune, for with my strong taste for botany and zoology, I find unlimited field of work here, and my sister is as devoted to nature as I. All of this, Dr. Watson, has been brought upon your head by your expression as you surveyed the moor out of our window." "It did cross my mind," I said, "that it might be a little dull, less for you than your sister, perhaps." "Oh, no, no, I'm never dull," she quickly said. "We have books, and we have our studies, and we have interesting neighbors. Dr. Mortimer is a most learned man in his own line. Poor Sir Charles was also an admirable companion. We knew him well, and we miss him more than I can tell you. Do you think that I should intrude if I were to call this afternoon and make the acquaintance of Sir Henry?" "I'm sure he'd be delighted." "Then perhaps you would mention that I propose to do so. We may, in our humble way, do something to make things more easy for him until he becomes accustomed to the surroundings. Will you come upstairs, Dr. Watson, and inspect my collection of lepidopterata, Latin, not my strong suit. I think it's the most complete one in the southwest of England. By the time that you have looked through them, lunch will be ready." But I was eager to get back to my charge. The melancholy of the moor, the death of the unfortunate pony, the weird sound which had been associated with the grim legend of the Baskervilles, all of these things tinged my thoughts with sadness. Then, on the top of these more or less vague impressions, there had come the definite and distinct warning from Miss Stapleton, delivered with such earnestness that I could not doubt that some grave, deep reason lay behind it. I resisted all pressure to stay for lunch, and I set off at once upon my return journey, taking the grass-grown path by which we had come. It seems, however, that there must have been some shortcut for those who knew it, for before I had reached the road, I was astounded to see Miss Stapleton sitting upon a rock by the side of the road. Her face was beautifully flushed with her exertions, and she held her hand to her side. "I have run all the way here in order to cut you off, Dr. Watson," she said. "I had not even time to put on my hat. I must not stop, or my brother might miss me. I wanted to say to you how sorry I am about the stupid mistake I made in thinking you were Sir Henry. Please forget what I said, which have no application whatsoever to you." "But I can't forget them, Miss Stapleton," I told her. "I am Sir Henry's friend, and his welfare is a close concern of mine. Tell me why it was that you were so eager he returned to London." "A woman's whim, Dr. Watson. When you know me better, you'll understand I cannot always give reasons for that I say and do." No. No, I remember the thrill in your voice, and I remember the look in your eyes. Please, please be frank with me, Miss Stapleton, for ever since I have been here, I have been conscious of shadows all around. Life has become like that great Grimpen mire, with little green patches everywhere into which one may sink and with no guide to point out the trail. Tell me then what it was that you meant, and I promise to take your warning to Sir Henry. An expression of irresolution passed for a moment over her face, but her eyes had hardened again when she said, "You make too much of it, Dr. Watson. My brother and I were very much shocked by the death of Sir Charles. We knew him intimately, for his favorite walk was over the moor to our house. He was deeply impressed with the curse which hung over his family, and when this tragedy came, I naturally felt that there must be some grounds for the fears which he had expressed. I was distressed, therefore, when another member of the family came to live here, and I felt that he should be warned of the danger which he will run into. That's all that I meant to convey." "But what is the danger?" "You know the story of the Hound." "I don't believe in that nonsense." "But I do. If you have any influence with Sir Henry, take him away from a place which has always been fatal to his family. The world is wide. Why should he wish to live in this place of danger?" "Because it is the place of danger. That is Sir Henry's nature. I fear that unless you can give me some more definite information than this, it will be impossible to get him to leave." "I cannot tell you anything definite, for I do not know anything definite." "I would ask you one more question, Miss Stapleton. If you meant no more than this when you first spoke to me, why did you not wish your brother to overhear what you were saying? There is nothing which he or anyone else could have objected to." "My brother is very anxious to have the hall inhabited, for he thinks that it is for the good of the poor folk on the moor. He would be very angry if he knew I had said anything which might induce Sir Henry to go away, but I've done my duty now, and I will say no more. I must get back, or he will miss me and suspect that I have been to see you. Goodbye." She turned and disappeared in just a few minutes among the scattered boulders, while I, with my soul full of vague fears, went on my way to Baskerville Hall. And that is the end of chapter 7. That was a pretty good chapter, except for the whole pony sinking into the quicksand, or I guess bog mud. That was kind of horrifying, and I did not like that at all. I do like that the sister's name is Beryl, because that's a really good name. It's also a really good gemstone. Anyway, I'm not going to be too long with my outro. I'm just going to say, poor pony. I'm really curious as to what the noise is. I don't think it's a bittern. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Beryl and her warning. Now I'm suspecting this brother. He seems a little dotty. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter as much as I enjoyed reading it. Sorry about my Latin pronunciation, and I will see you later.